All right, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. I have another exciting episode for you today. I'm here in the beautiful California sun, and we're here in my front yard garden. So this used to be my front lawn, and instead of the front lawn, I tore it all up, and I put all raised beds. So I have about 14 raised beds in my front yard, and I grow the majority, or 90 to 95% of my vegetables year-round. And today's show is to share with you some of the ways I like to enjoy some of my vegetables, and the best way if you are into raw foods to live. So what I like to do is to model nature. In many situations in life, I like to look to nature for answers. I mean, nature's been around for millennia, a long time, and nature doesn't have it wrong. So how do animals in nature eat? Well, the animals in nature eat, they basically go up to plants or whatever, and they eat whatever they're eating, fresh and alive, and it's alive at the time they're eating it. In nature, there's no such thing as refrigerators. Animals don't go and, open the refrigerator door and then get something out to eat. Animals don't go to the store and buy their food. Animals go out to the plant and literally nibble from the plant. So that is absolutely the best way to, do raw foods. Not like buying superfoods in little packages that get really expensive, but to grow your own food in your own space. Whether you have a front yard, you could put in raised beds, or you have a backyard. If you don't have that, you could get a community garden plot, and even if you can't do that, you could grow sprouts inside your kitchen, which once again is fresh food. And the fresher the food, the higher quality food, the healthier you're gonna be. So today what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk around my garden, we're gonna show you how I like to eat some of my food, and then later we're actually going to make a real simple dip in case you just don't like eating things plain. But let me tell you, when you eat something plain, fresh grown and fresh picked, grown in high quality and high nutrient dense soil, then your plants are going to be nutrient dense, and your plants are going to actually taste better, and everything you eat is going to taste much better. So one of the things I like to say is, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So I'm growing the stuff myself, so I have the highest quality food, because you know what? Farmers aren't going to do that for you. Farmers are paid by the yield, or by the tonnage, or by the weight. So when you buy food by the weight, you're paying for the farmers to grow food by the weight. They're getting paid on the weight, not necessarily the nutrient density or how much nutrients are packed into the food. So you grow nutrient dense food by having nutrient dense soil and working your soil and rebuilding and remineralizing the soil and bringing in compost and things like rock dust minerals. So you might be asking yourself, hey John, you're saying to grow your food, but I don't know how to do that. How do you do that? Well, you know what? I didn't know how to do that many years ago either. I have been actually gardening for about 10 years, growing my own food, but I got into raw foods actually 16 years now. So I've been doing this for a long time. So in this video and all my videos, I'm sharing my expertise and what I've learned over all these years to do that. So not only do I walk my talk, I put my money where my mouth is, and actually I show you guys how to grow your own food. That's on my different YouTube channel. So that channel is called growingyourgreens.com, where I teach you about how to grow your own food in your garden and even in your kitchen. I have sprouting episodes, and I travel around to different farms to show you some of the different new and unique foods and the ways that they're doing it, so that you could model and successful people. So just like when you're farming, you want to grow successful crops, you want to see somebody that's doing it successfully and then imitate them and do that too. Just like when you want to eat raw foods, you want to look at raw foods enthusiasts and people that are eating raw foods that are getting excellent results, and you want to follow them and do the same exact thing they're doing. Obviously, you're going to have to tailor it to your body and your specific needs a little bit and do what they're doing. You don't want to follow people that are into raw foods that talk a good walk, but they don't, walk a good walk. So next, let's go ahead and walk around my garden, and let's eat some stuff, man. It's really good, so we'll share that experience with you. So now I'm in the front bed of my garden, and one of the beauties of gardening is when you grow your own food, you get to choose what you want to grow. So like I chose to grow lots of these violas around the border of the front raised bed, and I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, they just look pretty. I mean, look at all these flowers just going in a row. The other thing is, these flowers are edible. And actually they taste really good. To me, they taste like candy without the sweetness. So actually, if you take some of these and like put them inside of the middle of a date, then it's like you get the date sweetness plus you get like the flavor of the flowers. So the other thing about the violas is that you could actually also eat the greens of the violas. And I planted these last year, and they came up and grew actually pretty much throughout the summer as long as you kept them watered. And actually they went to seed. So really good. And we want to be eating foods of color. Foods of colors have different antioxidants in them that are really good for us. And you know, I don't know if you've priced flowers lately, but sometimes they're actually really hard to find because they do expire fast once you harvest them. But you know, a little package of flowers, actually, they get quite expensive. So the flowers I just love to eat straight, and once again, picking things fresh and eating them, absolute best way to live on a raw foods diet. So grow your own food. Next, let's go over to the lettuce bed and check out some of my lettuce growing. So this is my lettuce bed. I have definitely well over 100 plants in here. And you know, when you grow your own lettuce, there's a few things that happen. Number one, they taste incredible. We could just go down here and harvest like one leaf. And a lot of the leaves that I'm harvesting are like more the smaller baby leaves. And when you are growing your own food, you want to eat some of the smaller leaves. They're actually a little bit more tender, and they taste a lot better too. I mean, if you go to the store and buy a head of lettuce, you know, you get the whole head, including younger and older leaves. But I rarely ever actually just top the whole lettuce plant out. I harvest by what I like to call sustainable harvesting, and go to every plant and harvest like one leaf off every plant to make a nice bowl of salad. The other thing is, on some of these lettuces, we can just, you know, pull a leaf off, and when you just get it fresh from the garden, and you know, you could get this same effect too if you buy them at the farmer's market. They taste like they have an oily coating on them, and that's actually really good. That's some of the essential fatty acids in the lettuce. And sometimes I like to think that if the lettuce is processed too much or put in a fridge, shipped across the country, and they're not quite as vibrant, you know, they lose some of that fatty acid content. So now we're in my bok choy patch, and once again, you know, the message of this video is to grow your own food fresh. And if you can't grow your own food, then at least go to the farmer's market and get your food as fresh as possible, because once again, we want to emulate nature. If you eat all packaged and dried raw foods, even though they're raw, I can tell you, you're not going to be as healthy as somebody that's eating fresh, raw foods like coming right out of their garden. So I want to teach you the best that I've learned, and the best that I've learned over all these years is to grow your own high quality food. And I want to repeat that, you know, it's really important to grow your own high quality food. Now, if you can't do that, well, then you gotta, you know, buy stuff directly from the farmer, join a local CSA, go to the farmer's market, make friends with a farmer, you know, I don't know, hire someone to be your personal farmer. But it's really important, you know, grow your own sprouts in your kitchen. You can do that. So, you know, do what you can and be the healthiest you could be by eating as freshest and highest quality food as you can, once again. So once again, this is my bok choy patch, and how it happens is the bok choy grows for a long time. They'll make the little heads, and sometimes they'll make the big heads, and oftentimes you may pass up the bok choy, you know, the organic bok choy in Whole Foods. And if I am traveling, oftentimes I'll actually buy the bok choy, because actually bok choy generally cheaper per pound than, you know, some of the kales or the lettuces that I would otherwise buy. And plus, I like the flavor. Actually, bok choy is really excellent to juice also. But when you grow it yourself, you're going to get a special treat. And most times you don't get this treat unless you go into some Chinese or Asian markets, because they actually do sell this at some of them. Basically, the bok choy goes to flour. So then what happens is you could just pop these things off. And these are like little, you know, bok choy florets, like broccoli florets. And they actually taste amazing. They have a nice bok choy type flavor, really mild and really good. Nothing better than fresh grown produce. So now we're looking at my dinosaur kale. So this is Dino Kale or Lactacino Kale. Many of you guys may know Dino Kale or Lactacino Kale. They come in a bunch at your local, you know, Whole Foods or organic market or whatever. And, you know, per bunch, depending on where you are in the country, they could be $1.99 a bunch to $3.99 a bunch for just 6 leaves. And I mean, you can see there's one plant here, I don't know, has several dozen leaves. So actually that's a lot of money. So once again, growing your own food, you're definitely going to save a lot of money on the food. And actually you could grow Dino Kale probably year-round in most every state in the U.S., depending on how you do it. Of course, in colder climates, you're going to have a hoop house over the winter and maybe even some compost in there that's keeping warm. There's a really good book actually called 4 Seasons Gardening, and there's a guy who lives in Maine, actually. He grows food year-round in Maine, and you know Maine gets snow and is really cold. So, you know, don't tell me, oh, John, I can't grow here in the wintertime. Yes, you can. You just got to learn how. No problem whatsoever. So anyways, the point of this segment is to share my Dino Kale with you. Most of you guys buy the Dino Kale, and when you get the Dino Kale in the store, I don't know about you, but for me, when I buy the Dino Kale in the store, I've never really liked the Dino Kale. I buy the Dino Kale, it's like, oh, this stuff tastes bitter. Actually, a matter of fact, I was over at a friend's house this morning who's growing his own food because of me, thankfully. And, you know, he was making a green smoothie and put Dino Kale in there, or some other kale that was from the store, and he's like, yeah, man, my smoothie tasted really bitter, or the stuff that I bought at the store, but you know, when I harvest my own fresh stuff and put it in my green smoothie, it tastes really sweet. So wouldn't you rather, taste things that taste sweet instead of, bitter and not so good? Not saying that it's not good for you, because it's still good for you, but the thing that I've learned is that once you harvest the Dino Kale and it starts to age and get a little bit older, actually as it gets older, it starts to age, it actually gets more bitter. So fresh harvested leaves taste much better. So who doesn't want to eat fresh tasting, better tasting leaves that are actually fresh harvested and actually more vibrant and rich of life force or prana or chi or biophotons, whatever you want to call it. And we are energetic beings, and we need foods that have energy so that their energy is then transferred to us. So once again, grow your own food. The other example I could give is tomatoes. Hopefully many people out there have tasted, homegrown tomatoes, either from a farmer's market, from your own garden, from a friend or neighbor, and you've tasted those and they're like, wow, those are so good. But if you go into, most any grocery store, even Whole Foods in the wintertime, and you buy the pink beefsteak tomatoes, I mean, those, to me, I don't know, they taste like cardboard. I can't say they taste like cardboard, but, they just don't taste like a real tomato, and that's how it is to grow from tomatoes homegrown to like store-bought to, Dino Kale from homegrown to store-bought. Big difference in the flavor. Once again, big difference. So we're gonna go ahead and harvest some of these baby leaves, and once again, you get to choose when you're growing your own food at what point you want to harvest them. You could harvest the baby leaves here that are, a lot easier to digest because the fiber is not as thick and tough, or you could harvest the large ones. So the large leaves I would actually save for like if I'm blending them up or if I'm juicing, and the small leaves I like just basically pick to eat out of hand. Man, that's a good dinosaur kale. Anyways, if some of these, wow, that's actually really good. So anyways, if some of these things are actually too hardcore to eat on your own, and once again, I encourage you to always eat your food just plain, as nature would, as animals. If giraffes come out here, they're just gonna chomp on the whole plant. They're not gonna go ahead and like pick a leaf of this, pick a leaf of that, and then mix it in a bowl and make a salad dressing. But that being said, not everybody is to that point yet. So if you're not, let's come over here and I'll show you a simple recipe you can make with only 2 ingredients to dip your Dino Kale or any other leafy green, or actually use as a salad dressing into to make it more fun and tasty. So now we're here in the garden and I got a couple appliances with me that's gonna assist me in making the dressing. So whenever you make a salad dressing, I encourage you to make it fresh as possible and use fresh ingredients to make the freshest and highest quality food that you're gonna eat and put into your body, because what you eat and assimilate becomes you. So over here we have the Vitamix Turbo Blend VS, and the Turbo Blend VS is the variable speed model, has a variable speed control so you can ramp up the speed slowly, to blend and get that perfect result that you're looking for every single time. Also has the basically BPA free blender craft, and also it's the package actually for people into raw and living foods. It actually comes with a hemp nut milk bag, and also a DVD by Annie Pio, who's a famous raw food chef, and also a book with basically 200 vegan and living and raw foods recipes. So that's definitely a really good package over there. On this side we have the Olympus Citrus Press. This is absolutely my favorite citrus juice in the whole wide world. Runs on no electricity, just manpower. Basically just squeezes the juice out of the oranges, or any other citrus for that matter. So now let's go ahead and make this recipe. Basically it's using only 2 ingredients. It's using macadamia nuts, which are my favorite nut to eat, and we got some Manolo organic tangelos. So first step is just basically juice your tangerines or any other citrus. Actually you could use oranges in this dressing also. You could use lemons if you like it really hardcore. I don't like to use straight lemons, it's pretty hard. You could use actually sweet limes. Actually sweet limes would make a nice mild dressing, but it's hard to find sweet limes sometimes. So I encourage you to always, once again, use the freshest quality ingredients you can. So juicing your own tangerines or oranges is much better than buying pre-made orange juice in a carton, even if it is non-pasteurized. And I have friends that still buy orange juice in the carton when they could be making their own, and they should know better. So don't get complacent when you're into raw and living foods. You always want to do the best you can, and the best you can is definitely using the whole ingredient and then processing it yourself. So next we're going to go ahead and take this tangerine and just simply cut it in half. Put this on the juicer here and just bring the handle down, and it's basically going to easily squeeze out all the juice. I like this machine a lot because it's just very efficient, doesn't take any electricity. It's actually really easy to clean, has only 2 parts to clean once you're done. So there's our tangerine, nice and dry. Take the other half, squeeze that out. Man, tangerine juice smells so good. There's the other half, nice and dry. Next, we're just gonna go ahead and juice this other second tangerine. All right, so that's the last tangerine being juiced. Now we have all this delicious tangerine juice. And the tip is, once you get the tangerine juice, you always want to take off the strainer cone a little bit and drip off the rest of the juice in your container. Now we have all this juice here. We're just going to pour that into the Vitamix carafe. And once again, I said this was only 2 ingredients, so as you can see, all it is just fresh squeezed tangerine juice. The second ingredient we're going to use today is macadamia nuts. So, you know, I encourage you not to overeat on nuts. Many people will just actually sit and chow down on like handfuls and handfuls and handfuls of nuts. That gets to be actually really high in fat, so that's actually not too good to do. I limit myself on a daily basis to no more than 1 handful is the goal, but then sometimes I'm lenient and I give myself 2 handfuls of nuts a day. Because, you know, we really don't need that much fat, and if you think, oh, John, I need to eat nuts for protein, well, you know, there's a lot of other foods that have protein in them, such as leafy greens. And actually, spirulina is really high in protein. It's really good. And you could grow your own spirulina inside your house, too, in an aquarium. Look that one up. I have a video on it. So we're going to take some nuts here. Just put enough nuts in here to basically get it to blend and turn into a nice sauce. You know, this won't necessarily work in a household blender. The Vitamix is really powerful. It'll really just, like, fragment up all the nuts into, like, a cream sauce. So this is actually a really good recipe. We're going to go ahead and start the Vitamix out on low speed. Turn it on, and then crank it up to high. All right, so the Vitamix just about finished up. You want to let it run long enough so that, you know, you make a nice cream sauce. And that's definitely really good stuff. Now, the thing is, if you don't want to add that many macadamia nuts, like if you want to do less fat than the amount of macadamia nuts I added, what you could do is add less macadamia nuts, because what the problem is, the juice is just really too liquid. I mean, you could just use tangerine juice as your dressing, but that gets kind of boring. I like to add that fat component. Makes it taste a lot better, actually. So if you didn't want to add that many macadamia nuts to get it actually to make a nice thick dressing, you know, you could use actually less juice, and then you would also need less mag nuts to make a nice dressing. The other thing you could do besides mag nuts, you could add less mag nuts and then add something like this. These are basically dried tomatoes that actually I grew and dried myself. You could add these instead, and that actually will start to take up some of the moisture in the tangerine juice in this situation, so then you would have actually less fat in the dressing if you didn't want to. So once again, this is just tangerine juice and macadamia nuts. We're going to go ahead and pour that in a bowl here. And look at that, that's a nice creamy dressing there. And then I have this special spatula here because, you know, it's no fun to be wasting extra food inside the blender craft when you can't get it out. So I have this nice long reach spatula that I could get underneath the blade. Because, you know, macadamia nuts, they're pretty expensive actually. So if you're washing your container out without getting all of it out, you know, you're literally rinsing money down the drain. So this definitely made a lot of dressing here. And I'm going to go ahead and scoop out the rest of this. And then we're going to show you how I'm going to use it. Alright, so there you go. There's the creamy tangerine macadamia nut dressing. It actually has a nice consistency of mayonnaise. So it's actually nice and creamy, nice and rich. And this is great to actually use as a dip or actually spread on top of a salad. So next, let's show you my favorite way to eat this dressing. Alright, so my favorite way to use this dip that I made is to just be in my garden, be walking around, and, you know, I mean, it's best to eat this stuff plain, and it tastes so good when you pick it fresh. But right here we have ornamental kale. And look at that color, man. That's a nice magenta color. Just gonna dip it in the sauce. Man, that's so good. Let's continue around and show you some other things. Actually, you know, we could go back over here. We got radicchio. And just pick off a radicchio leaf. A little bit dirty, so I like to wipe it off on my my pants here. Sometimes blow off the dirt. Dip it in. It's pretty good. You can still taste the radicchio, you know, it has a nice strong flavor. Good nonetheless. Move back here. I'm gonna work my way through the garden. You know, I encourage everybody to grow a wide variety of foods. Don't just grow all lettuce, you know, that gets really boring. Plus, you're limiting the nutrition that you'll be getting because you only have the nutrients that are occurring in lettuce. This bed is actually a mixed bed. We got beet greens, cabbage, Chinese cabbage, spinach, radicchio, endive, escarole, collards, mizuna. Here's some spinach here. Once again, any of these vegetables you could dip in, and I like to just dip in a little bit. No double dipping. Here's some mizuna. This is a nice Asian green. Can't often find this too much unless you go into an Asian store. Once again, when they're nice and tall like this and straggly, I'll kind of fold it over. Dip it and eat it. Best way to eat your greens. Direct, straight from the garden in homemade, fresh-made dip. Here's another nice kale plant. Actually, this one is called walking stick kale because it actually makes a nice thick stalk. Actually, this one's probably about like that thick, really thick. You could dry them out, actually use them as walking sticks. And unfortunately, this is another rare variety of kale that you actually just don't really see at your local farmer's market or even in your local market. And that's the beauty of growing your own food. You could grow so many different kinds of varieties that you can't just buy. Actually, this is my second favorite type of thing that I'm growing to dip in my dressing here. So we're just gonna go ahead and the other thing, you know, once again, when you harvest the leaves, when you grow something, you could harvest the baby leaves because the baby leaves taste the sweetest and they're the best, and actually they're, you know, easier to chew up than the much harder, you know, leaves on the bottom that are a lot older. So tender baby leaves, definitely good. Yum. So this is actually one of my favorite vegetables in my garden. Actually, these are called tree collards for a very important reason. And unfortunately, you can't hardly buy tree collards in any organic market. Even I've never really even seen them in the farmer's market for sale, other than actually maybe I saw the plants once. But these tree collards, you can see here, I'm standing on the raised bed next to it. It goes up and up and up and up and up, and then it folds over actually because we can't even keep them straight up. I can't get stakes long enough. This tree collard plant is about 12 to 15 feet high, and you know, just get up here and stand on it. Once again, we're just gonna pick a leaf off. The tree collards, especially good. These are especially sweet collards to, you know, dip in dressings, to juice up, to make green smoothies. But today we're just gonna finish the rest of my dressing. So these are literally weeds in my garden. Well, actually, they're not really weeds. They are kind of weeds, but they're not. We grew arugula here last year. We were harvesting the seeds fell down in the ground, and some actually went into the cracks between the beds, my raised beds, and the sidewalk. And I left them grow, and they kind of stick to the edge here to stick up, and they're not hanging out too much in the walkway, although you don't want to eat the low leaves because dogs pee on them. But anyways, this is absolutely my favorite plant to dip into the sauce, and you would never know this if you didn't grow them. Because, you know, while you can buy arugula leaves and baby greens, you know, your local Whole Foods and stuff like that, and you know, these are good. What you can't buy, and I've never seen in my life at any farmer's market or anywhere, are the tops. So the arugula will go to flour, and the flowers are delicious, and also you could just basically break off the tips here and eat the whole top. So I like to just take the top, dip it in the sauce, and then eat it. Wow. Like, the sauce alone already tastes like, I don't know if you remember, like orange creamsicle, like that orange creamsicle looks like a spaceship you used to eat as a kid. That's what this sauce tastes like. So I mean, it's good with anything, but when you eat it with the arugula flowers, it's like the arugula has that peppery flavor, right? So this has that peppery flavor, plus it also has like a complex, like it has all the pollen, though you could actually taste the pollen and the little flower buds that haven't opened yet. They kind of like, oh man, it's like peppery but sweet, plus you get this. Man, this is the ultimate stuff. You gotta try it. So hopefully today you've learned about the best raw food to eat, and that's the stuff you grow yourself, whether it's in your front yard or your backyard, in your kitchen, you know, if you're sprouting, or wherever you live, and you want to make recipes that have as few ingredients as possible. Like this recipe right here, 2 ingredients, taste amazing. So most of the time I'm eating 2 ingredients plus 1 ingredient. That's a total of 3 ingredients. You could eat really simple and be real healthy without having to spend tons of money on all these packaged raw superfoods. So once again, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables and be healthy. We'll see you next time.